Hey, my vintage loves. We had a request to do a video about some of my favorite reference books for vintage makeup and fashion, so I just want to share some of those with you. So I'm going to start with the ones more about the history of vintage and beauty and all those kind of things. These kind of run a range of topics, so to see what you can find. You can never read too much. You can never see too much of the original source of these things. It's always better to look at original materials and original pictures and those things for inspiration rather than the modern day interpretations of them. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in. This is a great reference book. This is Beauty in the 20th century, and this covers everything from the early 1900s to I think all the way up to the 90s. And there's some beautiful pictures, some beautiful illustrations. So it's just a good starting point if you really just want to like do a dive, and just get a good sense of what is out there, or how things look. There's pictures, there's illustrations, there's advertisements, which are also great to look at. So really recommend this book. This is an older book. It might be harder to find, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that it is out there. And voilà, from le français, le francophone, une histoire de la beauté. And I believe I got this when we were visiting Versailles a few years ago. This is lovely, obviously helpful if you speak French because it is in French, but beautiful paintings, illustrations, all these things. And this actually deals with kind of older beauty too. I think this actually goes all the way back to the Romans and the Egyptians and talks about their beauty routines, which is really interesting. That's harder information to find. It talks about, the Sun King during that era, and it's really more for older history, which I think is really good. It's because it's always good to have, go back as far as you can. So great resource there. Another one that goes back a little farther, Beauty and Cosmetics from 1550 to 1950. This was very helpful to me when I was doing a presentation about Marie Antoinette's beauty in that era. Again, beautiful, just, stunning reproductions of paintings and things like that. So if you're ever into costuming or of, an earlier era, it's great to have, again, great advertisements. It does go up to 1950, so you get all those beautiful things as well. And yeah, I think this might be a British one as well, so you kind of get that standpoint too, which I really like. And here we go. Speaking of advertising, all made up, 100 years of cosmetics advertising. You cannot underestimate how important the advertisements were and the selling and the marketing of cosmetics were, because that is a big part of it. A lot of images of the advertisements from the day, which were really interesting. And you can kind of see what the goal was of whatever time you're looking at. So this is the epitome of what you were supposed to want to look like or supposed to look like at any given time. So I think that's really interesting. It might not be what the average woman was wearing at the time, but it was the most aspirational version. And along those lines, I actually mentioned this in another video that we did recently. This is compacts and cosmetics, beauty from Victorian times to the present day. And this is written by Madeleine Marsh, who has an insane collection of vintage compacts and and cosmetics and all kinds of things like that. Lisa Eldridge did a video with her where she showed off some of her favorite things. And there's images of just like the flapper curler and the binding and just all kinds of amazing stuff that's very hard to find nowadays. And these great ads from the time, and then great images of really beautiful compacts that are just you just can't find, or if you do, they're super expensive. So it's a great peek into that world of beautiful compacts that we don't necessarily have so much anymore. Beautiful things like that. This is a little more specific. This is getting into the eyebrow. A friend gave me this book, and if one of the things that most defines a vintage look is the eyebrow shape and the lip shape. So if you can get your eyebrow shape right in a look, it will really help give you that 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s look. And this is a really beautiful book. This one is out of print. This is a gift from a friend, which is super wonderful, and I really appreciate it. It might be harder to find, but again, Amazon is there, all those great old all those great old bookstores are there, so it is possible to find it. And look at that great 30s brow, the Jean Harlow brow that we all know and love. And there's lots of pictures of all kinds of beautiful stars from over the eras, and how some of their eyebrows were very iconic and how they changed. This one is actually an amazing example. I just saw this one, Merle Oberon, the 30s to the 40s, and how her look of her eyebrow changed her face. I mean, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. She's very lucky because her eyebrows grew back from the 30s. Not everyone survives over plucking. But so great, such a great reference if you wanted to get down to the nitty-gritty of it all. And I mentioned Lisa Eldridge when I was talking about the Madeleine Marsh book. This is another amazing reference for just everything, really. It's really a catch-all book. Lisa Eldridge is an amazing, amazing makeup artist who works mostly in editorial and fashion, and she actually has her own line of lipsticks, and she has an amazing YouTube channel. I highly recommend you check it out. And she is also a vintage enthusiast. She has an amazing collection of compacts as well, and she separates each category into color. So there's red, white, black, and I'm totally forgetting the other one, but that's how she divides this. And she talks about everything from Egyptian beauty all the way up to modern day beauty. And it's just an amazing, amazing book. Beautiful images. I think these are all her work, and she's just so good. And then she'll have pages where she talks about different icons, muses, media, all kinds of amazing things. So I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It's a great resource if you just want to get a good start and a good overview of beauty and fashion and history and all those great things. So highly, highly recommend. So next, I'm going to talk about books that will help you get the look, the step-by-step, and just if you really want to start actually doing the makeup, now that you have your history down, you can start doing the makeup on yourself and start doing the hair. For any of you that don't know about Kevyn Aucoin, he was an amazing, amazing makeup artist. He was the first celebrity makeup artist back in the 90s, and he wrote these books. He wrote Face Forward and Making Faces, and if you're a makeup artist, you know these books. They probably changed your life like they changed mine. It was the first time I ever realized that you could be a makeup artist as a living, and even if you're not a makeup artist and you don't have a whole lot of interest in makeup, you should still look at these books because they will really give you everything you need to know technique-wise. And he does, the other thing that these are great for vintage reason is that he does these amazing transformations. So this is Amber Valletta. She was a big model in the 90s, and this is her. He did all the photographs too, and the makeup and everything. This is her as Clark Gable and Carole Lombard. So cool. And then he took other celebrities, turned her into Billie Holiday, Christina Ricci, Edith Piaf. If only for that, it is really fascinating to see how he transformed these different celebrities into to earlier celebrities. This is Martha Stewart, kids. This is Martha Stewart as Veronica Lake. So it's just really fun, and you learn a lot, and I really recommend it. I really, really do recommend it. This is Face Forward. This is probably my favorite one, but Making Faces, again, they're both amazing books, and I think will be probably printed till the end of time because they're still selling. Whenever I go into a bookstore, I always see them on the shelf. And again, throwing it way back, Vintage Face. This one was, I think, the first book I ever got on this kind of genre. This was early in my collecting days, my vintage days. It's a little more simple. I think it was a much smaller company publishing this. Yeah, it's a much more simple thing. It's fewer pictures. There's pictures of each. There's pictures of each celebrity that they're trying to emulate. There's kind of the archetypes that they're trying to emulate, and yeah, it's a lot more words and it's fewer pictures, but it's a fun starting point. And this is actually quite hard to find, is my understanding. So if you can't get it, don't worry about it. This is a much more recent book. This is a beautiful, beautiful book. I picked this up. Saw it online, ordered it, and was really, really pleasantly surprised at how well it was done, because I feel like a lot of books talking about vintage can be kind of cheesy. This one is not cheesy, and it's really beautiful, well photographed, well thought out. This covers hair and it covers makeup. It goes decade by decade. It gives a little bit of the history, and then it gives the setting patterns for the hair, the makeup. it's a really, really good one. It would be a really good book to start out with if you just wanted a good starting point for the 20s through the teens through the 60s, I believe. So I do highly recommend this one. And this is a newer book, so it should be quite easy to find. Retro Makeup. This is another one that I have had for a long time, and I really like this one. This is doesn't cover hair, but it does cover makeup, and it's just good. It gives a little bit of the history. It has a lot of good photographs. I feel like it could maybe have a few more images of people of the actual time, but again, it feels very achievable. You look at these people and the models and you think, I could do that. So if you're kind of looking for a good starting point, this is a good one. This is a good one. And this is the Westmore Beauty book from the 1950s that I think they were learning with back then. So it's literally like what they were given when they were being taught these different techniques. And you can see different face shapes. It's just a reprint of the book from back then. So it's definitely like, it's word heavy, but there are some lovely illustrations, and it gives actual setting patterns too. So if you want to, learn the actual setting patterns, it's really helpful for that. And along the thought of hair, Art Deco hair, another one, actual, setting patterns from the day. It shows you how to cut your hair. This is all about like the finger waves and the bob and all those kind of things. So if you really want to get into it and find out how they used to get those 20s looks, this will show you, how to get the sculpture curl, how to get the waves and all those kind of things. So if you want to do a deep dive, maybe you have a mannequin head at home, this would be a good book to have. And then again, Mystery of 1950s Hairstyling, another deep dive. I believe, this is actually a reprint from the 1950s of how to cut your hair, how to set your hair, do all those great things so you can get the 1950s, which is the 1950s hairstyle, which is pretty darn cool. Now we're going to look just at more overview of vintage fashion books. Dressing the Decade, picked this up at the Met, a great just overall source. This is, again, a wider view, so it's going to be less about the beauty aspect and more just about what people were wearing back then, what was happening back then, and the designers that were working back then. Decades of Beauty, again, great history book. I believe this one was translated, so the writing is not that solid, but from purely a visual standpoint and images, beautiful, can't go wrong, all kinds of beautiful, beautiful images. And it gives you a nice overview of each decade. So Life and Times, Faces in Vogue, film and media, fashion, hair and hats, cosmetics, body shape and underwear. What a great thing to have. Work and play. It's just a really good overview of each decade, so it's a good place to start. And this one is kind of a little bonus. I also picked this up when I was at the Met a few years ago. This is a really, really cool book. 1850 to today, every year has pictures. So you can see like the specific way that fashions were changing. It's so heavy, I can't hold it up. So 1860, and then they talk about specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Trends or micro trends that were happening from year to year, month to month. 1861, and some have 2 pages, some have 1 page, but it's really, really great, and I cannot recommend it enough if you have a little extra time, a little extra money. So yeah, there you go. That is an overview of some of my favorite books. I hope that was helpful. We can leave a list below of all the different books and links to them if there are links available. If you have any questions, please comment below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow us on Instagram at MyVintageLoveBlog, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.